Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week are Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells. We each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the 5 most popular stories on our websites and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You could also subscribe to our YouTube channel at IEN Magazine. Give us a thumbs up whenever you're there. That helps us with the algorithmic magic. And we're live every Thursday, typically around this time-ish. So, join us when you can. Jeff, how you doing this week?
Good. How was your time on the road? Sounds like it was a pretty cool trip.
It was a great trip, a great show, and it's just one of those where, even if you feel good about it, after 3 or 4 days of just hitting the trade show hard, your body is just no, you're done now. I need at least 2 days to even give your legs back.
And I'm sure your young sons were very happy to accommodate that, right? Just left dad alone.
Yeah, just
no
chill, Dad.
Oh,
No
yeah.
problem.
Well, no, it was all right.
We'll sleep in today.
I did a better job of metering the freebies. So as soon as I got home, I was like, here is a stuffed mold. And it's a stuffed black mold and for mold remediation. And it's kind of great because Caden calls it his black broccoli.
Oh.
And then, again, when they wanted more attention, I'm like, hey, here is a stress rocket ship. And then I didn't really think about how they were immediately going to take that and start throwing it everywhere. But so I've had freebies. There have been socks, keychains. That's kind of how I've kept them at bay. Anna, how you doing this week?
Just learning so much from you. Doing fine. How are you?
Mostly learning what not to do, typically. No, I'm doing well. It's great to be back. Jeff, I wanted to accommodate how you said last week you liked how, it came in a little bit quieter, and I wanted to accommodate, but I just physically
It's not
can't.
in you. No.
No, I can't. Just
Wouldn't be.
It might scare us if you did. If you came in real calm and just eased into it, we would be worried.
Yeah, we would call 911.
There's a cry for help. Yeah. Just oh my goodness, David's at a 7. Someone call 911. All right. Well, before we get into our first story this week, we have a word from our sponsor. One of the long-lasting impacts of COVID-19 and the global impact it created has been the priority now being placed on long-term enterprise-wide planning. So join myself and Jeff as we discuss Oracle NetSuite's newest white paper, The Ultimate Guide to Scenario Planning, to hear about the new strategies and steps that you can take to de-risk your organization. All right, our first story this week. Maintenance error leads to $1.2 million fire. In April 2022, the 600-foot-long chemical tanker, the Endo Breeze, was in the Raritan Bay between New York and New Jersey when oil spray from a fuel injector pump ignited and caused a fire. The crew stopped the fire, but while no pollution or injuries were reported, the blaze still caused some $1.2 million in damage. Last week, the NTSB traced the root cause to a maintenance error. Investigators found a slight offset on the banjo tube assembly on the engine's number 1 cylinder fuel injector pump. A banjo tube is a type of fitting designed for routing liquids in high-pressure systems. The NTSB says an engineer performing maintenance likely failed to follow the manufacturer's procedure for fuel injector pump reassembly when performing maintenance a day before the fire. According to the NTSB, this is no isolated incident, with several engine fires following routine maintenance. They are examples of what can happen when equipment manufacturers' recommended maintenance procedures are not followed. Specifically, this engineer didn't follow the tightening sequence described in the diesel engine manufacturer's manual. That led to the misalignment and failure of the high-pressure fuel connection. The NTSB's report reinforces why it is critical to carefully follow manufacturer assembly procedures and review manuals and guidance on a regular basis. Jeff, I know that we cover stories similar to this on a regular basis. I guess I hope that our coverage would help prevent these. But we see these pop up every once in a while where if you just did what it said in the manual, this never would have happened.
Yeah, and there's definitely been an increase in the number of these incidents we're seeing on these types of vessels, these big cargo ships. And when you think about what could have been here with this being an oil and chemical tanker, I mean, this could have been horrible. So I think there's really a couple of big takeaways. The first, obviously the negative, which is a lack of attention to detail. And we've kind of talked through a lot of the dynamics here when it comes to these maintenance procedures on these shipping container ships and all the different pressures that they're facing right now in terms of time, manpower, all of that kind of stuff. So I think the NTSB and the synopsis that you provided kind of covered that pretty effectively. I think the other thing that the report called out was also the fact that there was a lot of good here. There was the fact that things were in place. It was contained. Those backup safety systems did work in terms of eliminating the fuel and the oxygen that could have flamed this fire and made it a much bigger catastrophe.
Oh, yeah.
I think one of the things that this has reinforced is maybe from again, when we talk about safety, it's always kind of a cultural thing. And I think there is a focus right now within organizations to talk about what this means when we have these incidents. There's an appreciation of what happens in terms of how it can injure the injuries and the personal dynamics that it can have, and also the financial ties to that in terms of healthcare costs, in terms of downtime missed, and all of those types of things. But I think maybe that needs to be reinforced in maintenance procedures as well, because in this situation, I'm sure when this individual, obviously this wasn't intentional or anything like that, but reinforcing the fact that it isn't just improper performance. It isn't just, this isn't going to work as efficiently as it should, and there may need to be replaced sooner than it would otherwise. It's also, this caused this accident. Now, this is $1.2 million to about a $14 million boat. That's sizable. When you start getting up over 10% of the value of the actual vessel, that's a huge amount. But along with that is, this ship was out of service for quite a while. So you're missing opportunities there. You're missing business opportunities. And everybody who's on board the ship that depended on it to work and make a living as well was also impacted. So I think we need to reinforce all of those financial elements when we're talking and looking at maintenance procedures. And it's not just on a ship. It's in the factory and every place else as well. The conveyor goes down because it wasn't properly maintained. That hurts everybody. I think those are the things that we need to look at, in addition to all the other safety stuff that we always try to reinforce too.
Well, and how small it is, right? Like, I mean, this misalignment, it's hard to spot, even when you're looking at it straight on. We're talking a couple of millimeters here, Anna, and a couple of millimeters causing $1.2 million in damage. And it's frustrating, right? Because it's hard to I understand it too. Like when it's your company, you sometimes maybe don't feel like you have to tell your maintenance staff, like, hey, you read the manual, right? You're doing it. You're doing it like you're supposed to. Right?
Yeah. And as Jeff said, that NTSB report really acknowledged that how many times this has happened in they've run multiple reports on this same type of scenario. In fact, we covered one last week about the handheld radio and the fire in that communications deck. And in both cases, you're seeing people spring into action, and thank goodness they were there and they figured out what's happening right away. It sounds like it was addressed so neatly, but if you read the report, one of the control room engineers said that the fire reached his shoes. Like it was really close to actually causing a lot of, human results
Fallout
there. Yeah, it could have been much, much worse than it was. It's good that we're talking here about damage and not death, right? Yeah, I thought it was interesting looking at that report a little bit deeper. They talked about the engine room fire being an illustration of what can happen when equipment manufacturers' recommended maintenance procedures are not followed. I took that wording maybe a different way, and I don't know, NTSB, they really go out of their way to not assign blame in their reports, and they say that, they admit that that's not their job. They try to parse out what happened, but their job is not to castigate somebody or put somebody up against the wall. They just want to say, here's what we think happened. Is not following the correct tightening procedure just a way of saying that this person maybe just think about how many times you twist on your coffee cup lid wrong and it leaks on you, and how easy that is to do. To me, this was maybe an issue of a person working too fast, and maybe it's not an issue of I need to sit down and read the manual. Maybe it is an intuitive procedure, but perhaps they made an error in how they applied that That is very reasonable to consider as a possibility here, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But for NTSB to be diplomatic about how they portray this, they don't want to say like it was this guy's fault, but they want to say like, well, it was done wrong. It was not done to manufacturer spec. So to me, it was like, this was just somebody made a mistake.
It's human error.
Human error. And I think it's hard to take that away, to your point, when the advice is, read the manual, because it's so generic, and all these people have years and years of experience, and they are highly trained, and so it is sort of like you feel like you don't have to say it because you kind of don't, and and I think in this case it was just that's a little bit of a detriment to like procedural fixes here, because how do you say that to a person who's worked in maintenance for 35 years? Like, okay, sorry, oops, I did it wrong. It was not intentional. Yeah. But like they're not going to sit down with that manual either. So I don't know. I don't know.
I think then the maintenance guy can definitely make a case for better tools. We see a lot of tools out there at every trade show where you put in the exact torque. Where every time you hit that button, it hits that spec. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this could definitely be an example of where, hey, okay, maybe that torque wrench looked a little expensive when it was being pitched, but maybe it doesn't look so expensive these days.
Right.
Jack, who's watching us live, Jack, thank you, always a pleasure, says, let's go, IEN, and also happy birthday to me. And that's nice. Thanks, Jack. Happy birthday to me. I feel good about it.
Happy birthday, David.
Yep. I could feel a hair. Nope, 2 got white when I said that. One thing that I always also stress with the NTSB reports, and I didn't get to read the last one that we previously covered, but this one was good reading, Jeff. So I just wanted to go.
How many bags of microwave popcorn did you go through on this one?
No, I went through Mighty Little Crunch Corn.
Mighty Little Crunch Corn.
But so this one was, and one thing, you're right, Anna. Like the NTSB does a great job of like down to the minute what happened. Mm-hmm. And so like I didn't, when I covered this for the video, I didn't want to go so in depth, but I wanted to just give a little bit more. They do a really good job of like painting exactly what happened. And I just wanted to give a little more, paint that picture a little bit more. So what was odd to me was that this didn't happen until it got into the bay. It had navigated away from where it had filled, and then it was already making its way back to.
So it was full?
No, it wasn't full.
Oh, okay.
It had like emptied, and it was going back to fill up at like the Anchorage Bay port.
Okay.
But it didn't happen until they went full ahead in the bay. So basically, they were kind of just going slowly, navigating through the channel, and then once they reached the bay and kind of hit the gas, that's when things went bad.
Makes sense.
So when the order was given, 2 engineers just happened to be conducting rounds in the engine room when he gave that order. They could smell fuel oil and saw a haze near the engine. As they approached, they saw fuel oil on the ground. And as they were trying to figure out the source of this fuel oil, they opened the fuel injector pump cover, and like high pressure fuel oil just starts spraying into the air near a turbocharger and exhaust manifold. So near hot stuff. One engineer kind of just thoughtfully throws a shop rag over it, and they kind of ran out to let the chief engineer know. They tried to get the engine shut down in time, but it was too late. The fire actually broke out while the chief engineer was talking to the master, trying to get them to shut down the engine. And as he's talking to the master, he's watching the closed circuit video, and he's just like, nope, it's on fire now because I just saw it catch on fire.
Wow.
But you're right. A lot of good in terms of the area being evacuated and the engine room's fixed carbon dioxide fire extinguishing system working appropriately after it was implemented. And all of this happened within a 10-minute window. Mm-hmm. So like a lot of it was actually fortunate that they'd happen to have people in that area when the fire broke out, because chances are they might not have caught that as quickly. The problem was also that they couldn't tell if the fire was out because they couldn't see anything on the camera anymore. And when the FDNY got there, they said to keep it closed for another 48 hours because they thought by opening the door, they might
oxygen.
Get like a reflash. And all of this happens just because something called a banjo bolt, which I at least learned something. I learned what a banjo bolt was slightly offset. That's crazy.
Yeah.
The NTSB also emphasized the need for, quote, realistic scenario-based training. And I thought that was just a good takeaway for any manufacturer to have realistic scenario-based training for all maintenance. Just like we talk about risk management a lot more. We've been talking about it so much more since COVID that, this could be a good thing to implement in maintenance. Just like, some people might think you're crazy. Like, okay, what happens if this, but it might help your guys be better prepared or your staff be better prepared. All right. Highly recommend reading that report too. Great photos. Just really get the full story. Our next most popular story. Tesla delivers first Cybertrucks. Cybertrucks?
Cybertruck.
The Cybertruck. Sure. It was 2 years late and Tesla still has some manufacturing kinks to work out, but the EV maker delivered the first dozen or so Cybertruck pickups last week. CEO Elon Musk hosted the affair at his company's factory outside of Austin, Texas. 4 years ago, the company was hoping that the truck could tap into the auto market's most profitable segments, which was controlled by Ford, GM, and Stellantis. But now, Ford, GM, and Rivian have trucks on the market, and the electric Ram is due out next year. The Cybertruck's body is made of a stainless steel alloy developed by Tesla, and at the event, Musk showed a bunch of videos, one of a truck beating a Porsche 911 in a quarter mile while the Cybertruck was actually towing another Porsche on a trailer. Another video showed it out towing a Ford Super Duty pickup. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. On its website, Tesla said the rear-wheel drive version of the truck would start at an estimated $61,000 or about $21,000 more than originally expected. The top-line quote, Cyber Beast, or for me, Cyber Beast, would start at an estimated $99,990 or about $30,000 higher than originally expected. At the event, a Tesla exec redid the whole baseball throwing at the window incident. And hey, you know what? It didn't crack this time. They must have just really practiced that one. Like, are we sure it's not going to break? Now, Musk at the event said, it's the most unique thing on the road. Finally, the future will look like the future. Anna, does that Cybertruck look like the future to you?
Well, if anyone ever actually wants to buy one, it will be in the future because these Cybertrucks are not.
Oh. See what you did there? See what you did there?
Oh, take that!
Cyber shade.
Like this fanfare about the Cybertruck is here. The Cybertruck is not here. They're not done. They're not in
They
production.
delivered like 12 of them at the event.
12 Cybertrucks are here.
They delivered 12 of them that are custom made, limited edition. These are not production models of the Cybertruck.
Minutes to fill all those orders.
Right.
Have those people drive off.
It's hard for me to listen to the Cybertruck fanfare and see it compared to these other pickup trucks that are on the market, EV or diesel, whatever, because this is such a niche product and it is not on the market. Analysts are talking about some of the barriers with the Cybertruck. They're talking about the cost. Obviously, you're seeing that entry-level model come in at a starting price that is 50% higher than what Elon Musk initially said it was going to be. Obviously, that was in 2019, but it's not our fault. A lot of people put money down on that in 2019, and they're now seeing that kind of ripped out from under them. Reuters is saying that analysts believe that the cost is going to draw select affluent buyers. And I think we can see that will be true. So the entry-level model, which is this rear-wheel drive, that's, as you said, about $61,000. That's not going to be available until 2025. They've already said that. And if that's a Tesla 2025, that's a real 2027, right? Let's be real.
Yeah.
And, and the version that they plan to put out next year, which is an $80K version of this vehicle, I think analysts are concerned about already how that price is going to really limit the market for this vehicle, which, by the way, is intended to appeal to pickup truck buyers. And I think there's concerns that it maybe lacks the utility of another pickup truck on the market, what you might see with a Ford F-150 or a Silverado, like you mentioned. In my opinion, electric vehicle adoption has enough problems and challenges right now. And I just see the Cybertruck as just kind of another setback or even just maybe a distraction. It doesn't address concerns over price. The range is lower than Musk said it was going to be. It's another high-priced option for an income bracket that doesn't that has like a ton of choices. You know, you have the money. So I don't know. To me, it doesn't really woo the buyer that needs to be pushed over the edge on electric. And if you look too at like what it competes against, it is so conspicuous that to me, that in and of itself is a problem for so many buyers. Could you imagine like the foreman on the construction site rolling up to the site in this thing? That would never happen. Like to me, it's just like it's very LA. There just doesn't. I can't imagine seeing people who drive trucks who like to hunt and fish and where I like the blue collar guys that drive pickup trucks. They're not getting in this thing. Like it just doesn't, and it doesn't have the low price working for it either. So I just don't think it's going to work.
No, I don't think this is. I mean, I get it. They keep, and we'll talk about it in a minute, like they keep showing its capabilities about how it's supposed to appeal to utility, right? But I think this appeals to the pickup truck bros. Like that's who this is made for.
Which is a very small segment of the pickup truck buyer market.
Completely agree. But also when you're talking about the market or the inventory of high-end automotive, I mean, this doesn't have the same sex appeal, honestly, where, I mean, it doesn't have very clean lines. Like the stainless steel doesn't look great.
It's got clean lines, but there's way too many of them.
Well, so, I mean, I don't know.
There's so many lines.
It hurts to look at.
What I was going to end with was that basically I can't believe how much this reminds me of the DeLorean in that it's a truck that just so desperately wants to be cool, but it isn't, and it needs a redesign. Because even in all these videos, it's a video that they're showing me like it beat a Ford or Rivian, and it's showing it beat a 911 while pulling a 911. I'm like, still not that curb appeal though. Like, I don't, you know, and Nolan, who's watching us live, it's good to hear from you, Nolan. He says, I'm not doubting the Cybertruck's ability to survive a baseball, but the guy that threw it at it just lobbed it in there. So
notice that as well. That was pretty weak.
Yeah.
And it was very anticlimactic because he didn't really like wind up. He just kind of like,
just kind of tossed it. I mean, you know, maybe he had control issues and he wanted to make sure that he hit the target.
Well, this was Texas. Why didn't they bring in one of the World Series champion Rangers to lob one at the?
No, you wanted Nolan. Bring in Nolan Ryan and be like, hey man, throw some gas at this thing.
Yeah, because you think Elon anticipated Nolan commenting on this story, so that would tie it all together for us.
It definitely would. Would.
My
and
bad.
He anticipates everything. Jeff, so the Cybertruck has been a hot topic for everybody, right? So when I was at the trade show, this release came out and a lot of people were talking about it. And I was kind of surprised by the people that were talking about it in awe, like just really falling for some of this, you know, these viral video attempts. And I was like, but at the end of the day, I kept asking people like, you going to buy one? And nobody said yes.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm piling on at this point, to be honest.
Do it.
Yeah.
But I'll continue with my sort of Elon Musk waffling because when you look at the pure engineering, forget anything else. The engineering behind this vehicle, which in his intro or unveiling or whatever of this vehicle, he called it a car for the first half of it.
Yeah.
So kind of a major faux pas right there.
He's sleep deprived, man.
Still, don't call your Cybertruck a car when you're talking about the features.
Frunk, doesn't it?
He was standing in the frunk.
No, not the frunk. He was in the trunk. Wasn't he in the back?
He was in the bed.
Yes,
which is technically in the back.
Yeah.
But anyway, he kept calling it a car, and I agree with everything you guys have been saying there, but when you look at the engineering of it and what it is capable of doing, it's extremely impressive. When they had the truck pull sled out there and what it was capable of doing, it went further than the Rivian. It went further than the F-350. Very impressive that it can do that. The thing off the start, an electric vehicle should always beat a gas-powered car off the start and in the 40. I mean, or in the quarter mile. There's no way around that. So some of that stuff you could take kind of tongue in cheek. But again, a lot of the things that it can do in terms of load, what it can haul, all of those things, very impressive. Where they really missed and where they could have really set themselves apart, and it could have had all of these weird lines and looked at whatever, is if they could have come out and just blown people away with the range, the charge range on it, which it was very underwhelming. When you look at a max of 340 miles per charge, that is not special. That's a losing game right there. You're not keeping up with the Lightning or some of the other offerings that are out there.
Well, and he promised 500.
Yeah.
So he should not have done that.
Well, and this is where we always waffle about him, because when you look at the engineering and the product itself, there's a lot of genius in it.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to the customer-facing element of Elon Musk, it is a total just dumpster fire.
Yeah.
I mean, he's terrible at this.
Daddy Elon and his broken promises.
That too. So, and I agree with you. I mean, in terms of this, being able to do things on the job site, yes, I think it checks those boxes in terms of durability and performance. But yeah, nobody's going to want to pull up the next day as this is their everyday vehicle and do, what truck owners use it for on the weekends as well. No, this does not check those boxes. So I think he's definitely got an uphill fight there, in addition to, even if this would take off, all of the scalability issues that we've already talked about with Tesla.
You just need the first, right? And I know one painter who might be the first to pull up with this on the job site. But I mean, again, it's not.
Well, and there may be, if the price point wasn't so high, maybe if you want to look at an opportunity, maybe it is in fleets because of the engineering and the capabilities that it could offer here. But again, like Anna alluded to, that foreman, the leader on the job, the folks on the job site, this is their everyday vehicle too. This isn't something that they just take to work. So it's that type of dynamic that just doesn't seem like this is going to work out well.
Into that, I like the flash of the Porsche video, right? It going 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds and beating the Porsche while pulling a Porsche. I like that. I like the marketing genius behind that video. It's done nearly 2 million views. Makes a lot of sense. But you're right, Jeff. I think the Cybertruck pulling the sled, the Cybertruck truck pull video, where it pits it against Ford's F-150 Lightning and Rivian's R1T and the Ford F-350 diesel to show the tractive power, that was the one that might sway people in terms of like the actual engineering behind it. Because if you remember, Cybertruck is also lighter than all of those other vehicles, and it pulled the sled 318 feet. The F-350 only did 263 feet, Rivian 257 feet, and Ford at 207 feet. I think that went a long way to showing its actual capabilities. And they mentioned a lot of key things in the video too, like how they wanted everything was at full charge because that's where you get the most bang for your buck in terms of this tractive power. But still, like, I watched that entire video, and they pull the Ford Lightning up. They park the Rivian next to it. They park the F-350 next to that. And then the Cybertruck pulls up next to it. And I'm like, it just doesn't have the same appeal. But I don't know. But I mean, maybe that's also because I'm like a Rivian homer. And I think that one just like, it checks a lot of boxes in terms of being new and cool. And like, I want Cybertruck to like succeed. But in terms of the car, to me, still looks like the prototype. Like normally the prototype comes out and then it's just really wows you with the production vehicle. And it's just, I don't know. I haven't been wowed yet.
So how does this vehicle, with the way its aesthetics come across, what happens there? Like, is everybody going, no, man, this is not going to work? And he's just like, no, that's what we're doing. Is it just a cost-cutting thing in terms of the production capabilities? Because he's talking about pressing all those sheets of metal. I mean, replicate it. I mean, I don't know.
That is a big part of it, in that it's in terms of it being supposedly more manufacturable or easier to manufacture. But that said, what did he just say on that investor call? We're having severe manufacturing problems, so maybe not as easy as he thought. Eric, who's watching us live, always good to hear from you, Eric. Thank you. He says he's glad it is light. It will make it easier to push into a hole where it belongs. Not a fan. Not a quote unquote pickup truck bro. And Eric.
No words minced.
No. But I mean, hey, it's electric, so if it starts on fire, you got to dig a hole. And
I just like when I see it, I just imagine like, how you said that you think it's just like trying so hard to be cool. Like I also get that same feeling from it, where like I just feel like if anyone rolled up in that thing, I would be so embarrassed for them. Because it makes me cringe looking
and that's
at like
gonna cut like a knife.
It's just like Oh no!
Anna,
Like it's like
your next vehicle can only be a Cybertruck or a flying car. Which one is it?
a flying car is not a thing.
Oh, okay. I'm like, there's no way she says flying car. So I mean,
So you would take the Cybertruck over the non-existent flying car.
I guess I have to, but
All right.
it's.
I would make it look cool.
I just. I can't wait for Christmas
Put some stickers
2024,
on it.
and like your in-laws just all of a sudden roll up in a Cybertruck.
I would just like lie in that back seat with booster seats. It's just like so cool.
It would be cool. I mean, with booster seats.
All the bumper stickers you could put on there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of flat spaces for bumper stickers.
Yep.
Well, that is a delight. Clearly, everyone's pro Cybertruck on the panel. Our next most popular story: world's heaviest wheeled crane achieves milestone in first lift. The XCA 3000 is the world's largest tonnage wheeled crane. The really big crane, which was made by XCMG, recently completed its first lift in China. At a wind energy facility, it hoisted a 25-ton, 95-meter-long wind turbine blade to a height of 107 meters. That's really high. It was then accurately docked and installed in place. The crane was specifically designed for hoisting wind turbines. According to the company, the crane makes it possible to install a wind turbine nacelle that weighs 135 tons in 30 minutes' time. The XCMG XCA 3000 wheeled crane has a 3,000-ton lifting capacity, making it ideal for installing wind turbines up to 10 megawatts. At a height of 160 meters, it can hoist 190 tons, which sets a new record for highest and heaviest lifting capacity among wheeled cranes. Global wind power equipment manufacturing is evolving towards larger, heavier, and bigger models. So, lifting and installing equipment needs higher lifting capacities, greater lifting heights, more efficient heavy load handling, and enhanced safety technology. Anna, your thoughts on the really big crane with wheels?
Big crane.
That is such a big crane.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Obviously, you know, I'm pretty interested personally in the clean energy stuff and,
And doing it more efficiently, hey?
Well, exactly. Like, you know, we talk about these initiatives and it almost always seems like the biggest hurdle is funding, just getting these projects underway, the investments in that. But it's not just about the infrastructure and the grid transition. It's actually about getting out of the weeds sometimes on how cost intensive the process is of actually implementing this stuff. So you look at things like solar and wind, and that's often the hang up. I mean, wind is notoriously dirty up until the point that it's done. You know what I mean? Because it involves so much heavy manufacturing. It involves a ton of transport. There's that on-site assembly that has to take place with these turbines, which are, as you said, very, very, very big and heavy. Mm-hmm. So to me, like innovations that address, you know, finer tuning of some of these processes are very exciting. The Global Wind Energy Council predicts that wind power will hit a defined goal of 2 terawatts of power by 2030. 2022 hit record new capacities. They expect 2023 will see a growth of about 15% year over year as it wraps. And this is new capacity globally. So even though there's been some in China and US, who are the top wind power markets right now, there's been a little bit of pulling back in those markets. That demand is being replaced elsewhere. So new capacity is going up in other countries. So that is still a huge growth market. So to me, there's a lot riding on these improvements and efficiencies and just making sure that we can hopefully lower costs as well, improve safety for the people that were previously, you know, in charge of like trying to get these things together. Yeah. Anything that you can automate out, incredible. And obviously I don't want to use the term, the thing that leads to the thing, but I can?
Sure.
TM, you got a little TM.
To coin a phrase, a tribute to my friend Jeff, I feel like this has applications elsewhere that could be very exciting. You know, just its ability to lift and that size and so, yeah, the sky's the limit. Yep.
Literally.
Sorry.
Literally. No, it is a true feat of engineering. And I do think it is a cool reminder. It reminded me of like 3D printing houses, right?
Yeah.
Where before we used to always think like it's too big to automate. It's too big. It's just too big to go any further. But like there is nothing stopping. It cannot be too big to automate anymore. Did either of you guys get to watch the video of this thing?
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So the video looks great, but it doesn't do anything. I'm like the world's largest crane pulling this giant blade into place on the nacelle. And like, I guess I presume that the crane lifted the blade in place, but it's just like sitting there. Like if you're going to put out a video, at least show it lifting it.
Yeah, there must have been some sort of proprietary issues with what they were working on or showing or whatever. The thing that freaked me out and will always just bother me when they show these videos is the people up there that were actually charged with fastening,
yeah, putting that thing on.
The blade to what turns the rotor. Oh gosh, yeah. The fact that there actually need to be somebody up there on there.
No,
I don't care how wide the platform is they're working on. That is just.
Dude, my cousin did perform maintenance on these wind turbines, and he, would send photos, and it's weird to like have height problems from a photo where you're just like, you are up there, man.
I remember we ran that video of somebody doing work on like a cell tower or something, and they had the cam on their helmet, and it was just I couldn't even handle that.
It's just like stop looking down, man. Stop looking down.
A lot.
Get your work done and get down.
Yeah.
No, but the thing for me too is like when you have a wheeled crane like this, and I know that it's an old school thought, but even when you see like larger bucket trucks, stuff like that, I always have this like weird fear of them tipping over.
Yeah.
And the fact that this is able to accomplish what it can and, remain sturdy enough to put a blade on a wind turbine, it's just incredible.
Yeah, I don't want to look past the incredible engineering that this represents because it is amazing, but I'm going to play my curmudgeon card here.
Yes.
And go for it because I'm going to go the other way with what Anna was saying. I can appreciate what we're doing here in terms of getting this type of crane out there to build these turbines. Yeah. But it does feel a little bit like the cart before the horse because we ran some of these articles before, and this is after a $3.5 billion Biden administration push for improving the grid and putting all those funds in there. We still worldwide have a $300 billion a year gap in terms of putting up power lines. So it's great that we are generating all of this capacity and we have all this technology focused on capturing wind power. We do not have the tools to deliver it yet. And I'm not saying stop working on more efficient turbines and stop building cranes. I'm saying we also need to divert some of that energy into products that can help put power lines up more quickly. What do we do to get these processes through the bureaucratic process, which seems to slow it down so tremendously, to get stuff going? Because we have got a big issue. We're talking about electric vehicles here. We're talking about solar or wind power. We don't have the infrastructure right now to handle all this. That is where we need more time, more energy, more resources. So this is a little bit kind of, it's great, but type of dynamic for me.
Well, I don't disagree with you, but keep in mind this took place in China.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the US and the drawbacks that we have with our own grid and our own infrastructure, but this is a global issue, Well,
again, in that number, they're talking about $600 billion a year globally. That isn't just a U.S. number, and we're not even halfway to that.
I mean, maybe China has a better cart horse situation.
So, hey, we were talking about the thing that Lisa thing. If we have this type of crane that can help speed up the deployment of power lines and put them up more quickly, great. Then let's focus on that too.
Yeah. Well, it also can't handle the biggest wind turbines in the world, but I mean, not only are they too big, they're also in the ocean. But like the world's biggest offshore wind turbine is actually called the Goldwind's GWH-252 16 megawatt intelligent wind turbine.
Why?
Fun fact. That actually recently, so as I was just interested, like what's the biggest wind turbine out there and why wouldn't they make the crane big enough to work on it?
No, I meant why is it named that?
Oh, I don't know.
It's
because
too
they
long.
let an engineer name it. Just like, no, it makes sense. GW for Goldwind, the H because it's up high, the 252 because that's how many people worked on it, and the 16 megawatt because that's what it generates. But one thing
People will remember it.
Simple naming mechanism. this particular turbine is pretty cool because it set a new world record. World record. Yeah, watch out for those wascally wabbits. This world record, in terms of power generated in a 24-hour window, on September 1st, 2023, this turbine near China came up against wind speeds of 53 miles per hour that were associated with typhoon. I'm going to say haiku, but I think it's haikui. In 24 hours, this turbine produced 384 megawatt hours in just 24 hours, so in a 24-hour time frame, it generated enough power to power 170,000 homes. So, Jeff, as long as we have the grid in place, which, I mean, according to you, seems easy peasy, like in 2 years, and we have hurricane winds. No,
it's not what Jeff said.
No, I'm pretty sure I heard him right. And he said, like, we're almost there, finish line.
Yep. I feel good about this.
Just reach out and grab it.
Yeah.
It's that easy. Yeah, just plug. Somebody kicked the plug out. We just got to put it back in.
Yeah. It's that easy. Yeah. No, it's just they tripped.
Whoops.
They tripped it. You got to hit the little button.
I watched Christmas Vacation this weekend, so I know how those switches can be.
Yeah.
So nice.
Yeah, it's so tricky.
Yeah, you just got to get the right switch.
It was the right weekend for it.
Nearly there. Yeah. All right. Our next most popular story this week. Firearm manufacturer abandons plans for Florida facility. In June 2021, gunmaker Dark Storm Industries said it was going to relocate manufacturing from New York to Titusville, Florida. The company wanted to build a new $3.2 million, 25,000 square foot headquarters and manufacturing plant in the Sunshine State, which would create some 87 new jobs. But plans have changed. Due to a 300% increase in construction costs and a, quote, dramatic rise in financing costs, the project is no longer economically viable. As a result, the company is going to lose over $1 million in financial incentives, and instead, the company is going to temporarily lease manufacturing space on Merritt Island, a nearby peninsula. The company will use the space until it finds a, quote, suitable existing facility. The county agreed to buy back the land, almost 10 acres that Dark Storm bought at Spaceport Commerce Park for $362,000 back in 2021. Jeff, there are a lot of parts of this story that kind of caught my attention. One, it seems like everyone thought this was a great thing in 2021, and then things changed, and then everyone said, everyone wanted a takesy-backsy, and everyone said okay. Like everyone was just like, let's just walk away from this one.
Yeah, I mean, these stories, because we're talking about guns, it's very polarizing, generates a lot of very passionate responses, and that's why we ended up talking about them a lot. I'm going to take a little more pragmatic approach to this one and just look at, I think from a purely financial perspective, it looks like everybody sort of did the right thing. Cooler heads sort of prevailed. I know that Dark Storm, thank you.
Yeah.
Was definitely excited about moving operations and expanding and investing and getting into a bigger new facility to do what they needed to do. I know the area was very excited about welcoming them to Florida. They were leaving New York. So a lot of times with all of that positive momentum and good vibes going, people want to overlook some of the realities of the situation. And it seems like everybody sort of had a reality check here.
Yeah.
Dark Storm looked at it and they said, you know what, this does not financially make sense right now. There's a lot of things going on with the economy, maybe with their business, we don't know, but it just didn't make sense. And at the same time, the county there in Florida was basically saying, you know what, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
You didn't start anything yet, so we're just going to take this back. They're also, I guess, going to buy back the actual real estate and try to resell it to somebody who is interested in providing more manufacturing there. So I think this was almost a preventative sort of situation, almost a case study, and you can wait until the last minute, and it's okay, because if they would have tried to push ahead with this, potentially you're looking at an empty facility, a bunch of jobs not getting filled or people getting laid off after a very short time, and a company goes bankrupt.
Yeah.
None of those things would have been positive for anybody involved, including, that area, that government, those taxpayers. So again, almost a positive thing here. I think one of the bigger topics, and I think this segues into our next story, so we don't have to get into it right now, but this was a New York company, left New York, went south, and they're not alone when you look at a lot of these firearms manufacturers.
Mm-hmm. Well, went south, and what's interesting is that moving to Merritt Island, a peninsula, actually where they're going, there are a number of sort of like boutique firearm manufacturers in that area, so it's sort of a hotspot for it. Anna, what did you think about what happened to Dark Storm and the people that were sort of impacted by it.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Jeff said. It sounds like it made business sense. I think you could stop at dramatic rise in financing costs and everyone would be like, okay, we understand. I mean, they started plans for this in 2019. I know costs were going up at that time in terms of construction, but that was pre like the interest rate craziness that we saw. Which I think people thought would maybe slow down or would be kind of pulling back by now, but it is not. So it makes sense that they might revisit this decision. We've seen many other businesses do that also, pull back a little bit and say our costs have inflated beyond what we think makes sense and we're going to take another look at this. It's the reason why people aren't building houses right now too, I think the other thing that is fair to mention, and here's my turn to be the curmudgeon on the panel, if I may.
Everyone gets a turn.
I just felt like maybe the economic impact of this was a bit overblown. This company is a very small company. They had about a dozen employees in New York, from what I can find here. They're adding a few dozen more, but they only had to create 25 jobs in order to get those cash incentives.
Yeah.
So, not a large company. And I think it stands to reason, too, that renting a facility in Merritt Island nearby.
Yeah, a peninsula.
That manufacturing there will still come with a few jobs.
Yeah.
So, all right.
And I don't hate an empty facility now being full and being used as opposed to building something that,
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. And now the county is not on the hook for all this incentive funding, which was not going to create that many jobs to begin with. So I don't know. I think sometimes like states without gun laws like to stick it to the ones, like that, look what we're getting that you're losing. I don't know that they lost that much when they left New York. But not to mention, I would say that the cash that they were putting up for this. So this was according to the owner. This was one of his quotes when they first announced the project, but they were planning to build a, quote, high profile landmark type building. So I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's pretty.
But it sounds like maybe they were going to dump a bunch of money into overdoing the architecture for a marketing purpose is what it sounds like to me.
It's going to be in the shape of an AR-15.
Yeah, they were taking some of this money. They said they applied for some of these incentives because the land that they were going to use was not good land. It's like very sandy and marshy, and they said it's not conducive. They were going to have to do some work to make it workable.
They were going to build a firearm factory on quicksand?
Kind of, yeah. I don't know. Maybe.
Problematic.
It was, maybe there was a lot of snakes there. I don't know. It didn't exactly say.
It's 10 acres too, though. That is a large plot of land for manufacturing.
For, what did they say, 25,000 square foot facility? That seemed, I wanted to, I double check that.
Yeah.
Just because it seemed like a smaller facility for having so much land.
Yeah.
But I do think the biggest takeaway from this story is that you can move and upgrade operations into an existing facility.
You can. Yeah.
It's and I get it. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes maybe it's a food product or something and you can't go into a contaminated facility and you need to buy new or it's just more cost effective. But I think that a lot of times it can be more cost effective. Like you did the story on what was the manufacturer that basically did everything right in Ohio right before the Ceramasource or whatever, where he redid the facility in Ohio.
In East Palestine.
In East Palestine.
And
then it was immediately contaminated. But that was up until that point a feel-good story about how you could retrofit an old facility.
Yeah.
Here's another one. And I think that would be the best takeaway is that, shop around.
I feel like it was positioned like it was this devastating loss for the community. And it's really not. I mean, they're still coming. Yeah. They're just not investing a bunch of money in something they really didn't need to invest in to begin with, in my opinion.
Yeah. The company also had a 10-year deal for a 100% break on county property taxes and a 7-year deal for a 70% break on city property taxes. So it was a lucrative deal. It's also another reminder that money is expensive right now. And I know I've said it before, but let's just say they got the most banging business loan in Florida to finance that $2.2 million that they had remaining at 6%. I mean, they're still paying $361 per day in interest alone. Like,
Did you do some math?
I did math, so careful if you're repeating those to anyone that may know math.
It's either $36.10 per day or $36,000 per day.
I can't guarantee the decimal point. I can guarantee the 3, the 6, and the 1. Like, no, but yeah, like, even with the best interest rates, they still need to be profitable just to keep their head above water.
Well, and all those operating expenses that you would assume they were kind of counting on moving to Florida from New York obviously wasn't enough to provide enough of to overcome that disparity too.
Yeah, and they are also looking at facilities in Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Texas. So it is possible that they move to a different state. But Anna, kind of to your point, it is a smaller manufacturing operation. This isn't like an EV battery, manufacturer choosing another location. It might not be the biggest loss.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Our most popular story this week. Back-to-back gun-related stories. A nearly 200-year-old gun factory is shutting down. Rem Arms is the gun maker behind the Remington brand. Last week, the company decided to shut down its manufacturing facility in Ilion, New York in March 2024. The company sent a letter to union officials that was obtained by a newspaper, the Observer-Dispatch. The closure will bring an end to Remington's long engagement with Ilion, which started in 1816. Rem Arms cited several reasons for closing down operations. Specifically, the facility requires, quote, excess handling during production due to its multi-building, multi-story layout. The company also said it's expensive to run a steam plant with nearly 1 million square feet of space, and maintenance and insurance costs are also high, given the buildings are more than 100 years old. Union officials called the move a, quote, slap in the face because the news comes during the holiday season. In a statement, United Mine Workers President Cecil E. Roberts, or Cecil, not sure how he goes, he said, quote, Merry Christmas from Rem Arms. The workers in Ilion enabled Rem Arms to rise from the ashes of the Remington Arms bankruptcy in 2020-2021. Without these workers and their dedication to producing the best firearms in the world, this company simply would not exist. The Remington parent company has filed for bankruptcy twice in the past few years. The financial woes, in part, stem from a lawsuit filed against the company by the families of the Sandy Hook victims. In 2022, Rem Arms settled with the families for $73 million. Jeff, I'm just kind of shocked that they were surprised that the really old building that they were working in wasn't efficient.
Yeah, I kind of, I'll give the union official some credit there for his speech. Do you think a lot of these union guys that their spokesmen were like former high school football coaches? Because they really give some fire and some passion into these speeches. I mean, they are definitely war cries when they come out.
No, that is a heck of a subject line. Yeah. Merry Christmas from Rem Arms. Ooh, what are they saying? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to me, this comes down to three things. I mean, they bring up the Sandy Hook dynamic, which I don't know why they would have had to have brought that into the equation, in my opinion, because there's a lot of other issues with Remington. First of all, it's a brand that it's not a bad brand. Mm-hmm. There's nobody's going to say something negative about their products, but it's not one that's growing. It's kind of like your dad's. You want yours, okay? That's what
dad's brand is shining higher than ever, brighter than ever.
Yeah, that was what my grandpa and my dad used. I want to do something different, sleeker, newer. Okay, So I think there's a little bit of that issue. Despite that, Remington still is like a top 4 or 5 in terms of sales every year. So it's not like it's gone away. So I think what it also comes into, you talked about the higher overhead costs when it comes to that facility, needed some dramatic upgrades, which they don't want to do right now because a couple of years ago, they did say they were moving their manufacturing and headquarters to Georgia. Mm-hmm. And that's really the third part of this, just bringing up some simple census-based stats. When you look at Ilion, New York, median household income, $62,000. Average age, 42. Manufacturing employment, 13 to 14% of the population. Now we go to LaGrange, Georgia, where they're going to move a lot of this manufacturing to. Median age, 34. So it's a younger population. Median household income, $37,000. It's almost half. Okay, so you're paying a lot less there. And the potential manufacturing workforce, double at about 25%. So there's all of these economic reasons that they're doing this as well, which is why it bothers me when they bring that Sandy Hook stuff into it. I can appreciate the fact that those legal dynamics can impact the bottom line. This is focused on cutting costs. You've got a brand that's starting to slow down in interest. You're cutting manufacturing costs is what this is all about. To your point too, I don't know how they could have been shocked up in New York, unfortunately.
Oh yeah.
And because it brings up a bigger issue too of a lot of these firearms manufacturers moving from the Northeast to the South. Remington's one, but they're definitely not the most recent, and they're not alone.
Yeah. For me, the state of disrepair is on the company, right? It's like blaming the rain because you got a leaky roof. And Anna, to me, like the excess handling that they were talking about means that kind of they never modernized operations. And I mean, overall, this facility had like, what, 100, 200 years? I get it. The company is only 2 years old or whatever, but like you knew what you were buying and you had to modernize it, at least even in the interim until you moved to LaGrange. I don't know. I feel like a lot of that is on the company and just trying to really understand what they bought when they bought it out of bankruptcy.
I mean, I certainly think there's some scapegoating happening with blaming the facility. However, it is a scenario that we've seen play out multiple times over the years where you see a facility that was once functional no longer is. And I got to be honest, like to me, it just felt like at least they're saying that because a lot of companies don't.
Yeah.
At least they gave us a little plain language on the fact that this story or this plant is multiple stories and it doesn't make sense to produce that way. It's too expensive to heat and cool. It's too expensive to, what was that other thing that they said? Like maintain and insure and all that stuff because it's so old.
Excess handling.
Yeah.
Material handling.
But if you pair that with, some of these settlement costs, which is a tremendous amount of money, you can see kind of why it's not so easy to say like, hey, let's build a new one right next door and use this facility that's got this long standing brand logo on it as a brew pub or I don't know, whatever, a gift shop or whatever it is that a lot of factories do when that happens, let's build a museum next door out of the old plant or whatever. They don't have the financials for that. Yeah. And to your point too, obviously the trend towards moving south is a real one. They've already announced this move to Georgia. So it makes sense that would be some of the writing on the wall, but I don't think that's the only thing. You have to also look back at, you mentioned the bankruptcy. Maybe this sounds cold to say, but the Ilion workers were laid off once already and not that long ago.
No. Yeah.
When Remington filed for bankruptcy, as you recall, many of those workers were furloughed during the pandemic because they were shut down for not being an essential business. And then
like 600 workers.
They took like 600 workers, remember? And they fired them with no severance. And it was a good almost year before that plant was purchased and they reopened it. So, of course I have sympathy for a worker who's been in this community and this is their level of experience and this is what they've been doing for so long. I can see why this is gutting for them. But at the same time, it's not like this has been a smooth ride, and there's been a lot of hints at this. There's been a lot of reasons to think this is not a sure thing. And so I know that this union bluster has to take place and they have to say this stuff and Merry Christmas and all that stuff. But how could you not see it coming,
Yeah. On the union bluster, I mean, Cecil E. Roberts is no stranger to the bluster.
Cecil E.
It's Cecil E., please. In October 2020, so Cecil E. said that the union was working with Roundhill on reopening the old but failed Remington. When Remington furloughed all those employees, he was the one that came out and said, Remington had one more kick in the pants for our members. He's just one with words.
I like it.
But yeah, so it was 585 workers that were terminated. Wow. Just a reminder, not going back that far, like you said, it was a July 2020 bankruptcy. Roundhill Group bought them. They actually operate as Rem Arms. And Remington was sold in 7 different pieces. The Ilion plant and other assets were sold to Roundhill Group for only $13 million. Like, I remember at the time we were discussing what they were going to do with it. Was there any value in what they were buying? And clearly there was, but as with any closure, our thoughts are with the employees. There's still, 250 workers in Ilion, and that sucks.
Yeah.
That just sucks. At least it was announced at the holidays, and it's more like a happy Easter you're fired because it's March 2024.
Gives them a little time to find something else, I guess.
Yes. All right. Before we move on to, in case you missed it, the stories that maybe weren't as popular on the websites, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward, we have a word for our guest producer, John, who is just crushing it back there.
Thanks,
coming
John.
all the way from the East Coast to help us make sure this podcast gets off the ground, because one of our regular producers may or maybe, got sick while he was helping me, tirelessly working with me last week. And so, guest producer John, you're crushing it. Thank you very much. It's good to see you. All right. He says he's good to be here. I believe him this time. All right. Sponsor. One of the lasting impacts of COVID-19 and the global pandemic it created has been the priority now being placed on long-term enterprise-wide planning. So join me and Jeff as we discuss Oracle NetSuite's latest white paper, The Ultimate Guide to Scenario Planning. Figure out the strategies and steps that'll help you de-risk your organization. All right, in case you missed it, stories maybe not as popular, despite having some major companies in the headline, and implications they might have going forward. Anna, I was surprised that the story you chose didn't make the top 5.
I know, I was too, because this story is an update on a story that we covered last week in the podcast. I don't know if you were able to check that out, David.
I checked it out because it was
he called me out, remember, about the intro? So
and I had to know what Andy put in his yearbook. I was just like, come on, I gotta know.
Yeah, he was keeping that close to the vest.
Real close
we
to the
can't
vest.
share it.
It wasn't nearly as embarrassing as I was hoping it was. I was just like, oh, that's fine. And I think it was like more of he wanted to make sure he remembered it like word for word, which is why he didn't go in.
Yeah. Don't worry, Andy, you're still cool.
So Tesla and the ongoing situation in the Scandinavian area.
Yeah. So last week, as you know,
producer Eric, who is
being
watching us
trolled
live
right now,
yes, says that it was worth it and he regrets nothing. Me too, Eric. Me too.
Hang in there, Eric.
Thanks, Eric. You're just crushing it actually from home right now. I would just be sleeping for like days on end. Sorry.
In case you missed it. Mm-hmm. So the story is about Tesla's Swedish union conflict and how it is now spread to Denmark. So obviously we talked last week about how Tesla is sparring with some union mechanics in Sweden, and the mechanics have been trying to bargain with Tesla for now 5 years, and Tesla has thus far failed to make an agreement with them. So they walked off the job and have now, in solidarity, pulled a lot of other union folks in along with them. And I think the key point we were stressing last week is that this is a cultural thing in Sweden. 9 out of 10 people who are in the workforce are represented by a collective bargaining agreement. It conflicts with how they operate to not do that. Mm-hmm. Tesla's digging in their heels. They're trying to send in people from other countries to cross the picket lines to continue to get their vehicles out in the market and to get them repaired, and all that stuff's not taking place right now. So what's happened since now is that Denmark's transportation workers with the largest trade union said that they will take action in solidarity with Swedish workers. And so the union workers are known as 3F, and they said that they will not deliver cars from Danish ports and transport them on trucks to Sweden after this took place. Mm-hmm. So basically, they're stepping out. It says with sympathy action, that model is no longer possible. Initially, they said that they would do it. They're not going to do it. Jacob Like, local head of 3F Transport in Esbjerg.
Nailed it.
Really?
Well
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Told the regional daily that Denmark's 5th largest town is the only harbor through which Tesla cars can arrive by ship. And as of December 20th, we will not drive their cars off board as we usually do. So it's likely to also affect the Danish market now, as it will obviously affect the Swedish market. Jan Villadsen, chair of Denmark's 3F Transportation Union, called this a very important battle, adding that even if you are one of the richest in the world, you can't just make your own rules. Mm-hmm. That was his quote. Mm-hmm. That is directed at one specific person. And I think we know who that is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Who could he be talking about?
So interesting, though, because the day after this story broke, Norway's largest private sector union said that it would later this month start blocking transit shipments of Tesla cars meant for the Swedish market as part of a growing Nordic movement to support striking mechanics in Sweden. Just a reminder, this is over a bargaining agreement for fewer than 200 workers in Sweden. There's like 120 of them. That's it. Mm-hmm. It has become emblematic of a larger workers' rights issue in that region. And they're getting personal with their comments, referring to the richest in the world. And it's this impasse, and you hate to see it from an economic standpoint, but at the same time, it is hilarious. Mm-hmm. So I just pop some popcorn, I guess. I don't know what's going to happen next. I mean, you know that Elon Musk doesn't want to move on this, but at what point do you let that go? I mean, how long do you let that go on?
No, I mean, you're right. You hate to see it from an economic standpoint, but as Andy Zell would say, you hate to see it from an Elon Musk standpoint.
Yeah.
So Norway, when that news came out, their union rep said, "This is a clear signal to Tesla that they cannot transport Swedish Teslas through Norway. It will be met with actions, and we will take the measures necessary to make it work."
Yeah.
So, Jeff, I mean...
Well, the Norway thing is huge because what did we talk about last week? Like 90% of that population drives EVs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, it's not a huge, consumer marketplace for vehicles, but still, you're missing out on a hot market here.
Yeah. Well, and a growing part of the world is saying... No, man, like pushing back.
Well, and the reality is, again, they want a collective bargaining agreement. So what they're saying is pay us like everybody else is getting paid for the job that we do. Mm-hmm. They're not going on strike saying we want 50% pay raises. They're saying give us what everybody else is getting, basically. And like you said, it's been going on for 5 years. This is that part of Elon Musk where you don't get how the genius on the engineering side cannot translate to the interpersonal side. Mm-hmm. What everybody's really waiting for, though, is what is Finland going to do? That's the only part of Scandinavia we haven't heard yet.
Mm-hmm. Where you at, Finland?
So I'm
represent.
See if there's any rumblings.
I mean, but I feel like he's just out there being like, so Scandinavia isn't getting Teslas, period. Just like, and then he'll move on.
I mean, that's fine, but he's not in a position to do that. Yeah. He's already having a lot of issues to deal with. He can't scale. He's getting beat in some of these bigger markets. I mean,
he needs Scandinavia.
And it's only going to get worse. So,
Jeff,
where's Finland at?
Swedish court rules against Tesla in labor dispute. Finnish unions join the fight.
Whoa.
Finland is
in. It happened. We're breaking news on the podcast.
Via Reuters this afternoon.
No, right now. It just happened. This just crossed the wire. It's crazy. Good thing they emailed Anna directly.
Finland is not sitting out.
A Finnish union is joining a port blockade that will prevent the car maker from importing its vehicles to Sweden. What happens now?
Yeah, tardy to the party, Finland. Wow, that is. I mean, it is it's a wild situation. And Anna, to your point, that really could have been probably pretty quietly resolved. Mm-hmm.
Could have.
And maybe that's the point. Maybe he's trying to make a loud, very public union stance.
Of course he is, but
so foolish.
At what cost? I mean, he is losing way more money.
And we talked about this last week too, not to be repetitious, but there is geographic bias in how you treat unions for every automaker. Yeah. How Tokyo handles things in Japan is different than the US. He can do this. He's not betraying any unwritten laws here or something.
It's the law of Musk, and it will be obeyed. Jeff, what's your in case you missed it this week?
We haven't talked enough about EVs, So I'm gonna continue on that theme here.
Tis the future.
I thought this was interesting. So the headline is GM and Flying J open first locations for National EV Charging Network. So we don't have a lot of Flying J's or pilot centers around here. A lot more Quick Trip and stuff like that. But they have partnered with EV Go in the opening their first 17 locations of their previously announced National Electric Fast Charging Network. This is in 13 states right now. And these are some of the things that they're offering 24/7 at these locations. Multiple fast charging stalls with chargers capable of delivering up to 350 kilowatt hours, canopies to protect drivers from all the elements, pull-through charging stalls to accommodate EV towing, centrally located chargers in well-lit areas monitored around the clock by on-site staff, access to restrooms, bedrooms, food and beverage options, and free Wi-Fi, and then plug and charge capability for a streamlined charging experience. So basically,
it's a gas station. Look at all these amenities. Canopies, Jeff. Canopies.
Restrooms.
But these are separate for the charging stalls. So it is something, David, because right now, if you go to a public charging stall, you're basically just pulling into a parking spot and get the charger out. So they are trying to go that extra step.
Yeah.
These are just the first ones. Obviously, there's more to come. I thought it was interesting because, first of all, they're the first one to really announce it at this scale and cooperating with a known destination and in a lot of these geographies. The other thing that was kind of interesting is I couldn't find pricing on their site. So if you go to like the Flying J website, depending on the location, they'll tell you how much gas is going for, but nothing for charging. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that can change from location to location, because there are a number of variables that go into what they're allowed to charge, just like it is with gas and how that varies depending on state taxes, different municipal taxes that may be applied. Same thing with electric rates. So right now, depending on where you are to fully charge your vehicle, depending on the size and all that kind of stuff, the national averages go somewhere between like $12 to $13 for a regular size or a smaller EV. If you got like a truck or something bigger, upwards of $40. So still much less expensive than filling up with gas. And you have to think, if this works out logistically in terms of getting these facilities up and running, people feeling comfortable with using them, especially, it sounds like a little thing, but the fact that it is under a nice canopy, it's well lit, people can feel safe using it because you're going to be there longer than filling up with gas. I think these are a lot of little things that could go a long way. And as we get more of these stations, it just puts more pressure on all those other dynamics that we talk about with EVs in terms of manufacturing, the charging stations, getting them in place, hooking up to the grid, all that good stuff. So
I'm really interested in the experience as well. But talking about how people are creeping in on the EV market share with this deal. So GM drivers specifically get exclusivity and the ability to reserve a charger. They get discounts on charging. They also can save on like food, beverages, and merchandise. So those could be, you not only look at a charging network when you buy an EV, but if there are additional incentives like, hey, there are a bunch of these in the area and you can also save money while you're just kind of hanging out.
I think it's interesting that it is a GM deal just because we talked about all the adapters starting to become uniform. Yeah. So, it'd be interesting to see how this sort of plays out, if that's the norm, I guess.
And these are open, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anna, it looks like they're going to have more of these to open. By the end of the year, there's going to be at least 25. And what do they want? Like 500 travel centers by the end of next year? That's rapid expansion.
For sure, yeah. And, Jeff, I do think it is becoming a matter of course because consumers or buyers are looking at these as part and parcel with the new vehicle purchase. They want to know, what am I going to do to charge it? So you're seeing OEM automakers add in like 2 years of free charging at whatever partner that they have that runs the charging stations. That's so for GM to take it a step further here and address what people really want, which is you kind of have to reframe people's expectations as to this is what we're used to. We're used to stopping at a gas station and being able to run inside and get some terrible pizza or whatever it is.
Some delectable pizza and a growing menu of items.
Yeah, and some Gardettos for the 20 minutes you have to sit there.
That sounds good. Oh, man. Just like you're in the car with a person, you got to sit there for like 25 minutes and you're like, really? Gardettos.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen to you crunch on these things for the next 25 minutes.
And then you have to go back in to buy more snacks because you ate them while you were charging.
Right.
So
How about the Funyuns?
Yeah. It's,
I did. Oh my goodness.
No.
So we got the crunch on this side and the odor on this side. It's going to be a real hot box. All right.
do you want to take
the three of us are going
do you
to
wanna,
charge
yeah,
meeting?
should we take
Yeah.
a road trip
Is that
or
what
what?
we're doing here?
Yes, that's where we're going.
And are we going to find like bench seating so we can sit all in a row like
Yes,
this? or
of
what?
course. When we go on the Today in Manufacturing road tour,
Okay.
when we bring this thing on the road, that is exactly how we're going to do it.
Yeah, we just sit in the back seat and eat
Producer
snacks.
Alex and Eric are going to drive, and we will sit on the
We're
bench.
going to get like a
seating in neat row.
1985 station wagon so we can sit in the bench.
Yes, and we will just play songs that are popular from, like road movies over and over again.
Anyway,
sorry.
it makes sense that they are doing this because people don't want to stop in a dark parking lot in the middle of nowhere and sit there for 20 minutes and do nothing. Like they want to stop at their favorite gas station and convenience store and go inside and use the bathroom and do what they need to do while they're waiting for that charge and get what they need, their coffee and whatever. So it makes sense. It needs to be done to pair those things together. And obviously the gas stations are looking at this too. Like, how do we modify our business model to fit vehicles that don't use gas? What's their reason for stopping if we don't have a way to?
Yeah.
So we'll see how this spreads. I do envision this kind of spreading, but
Because on like every 15th charge, they get a free pound of bananas. That's why.
Pound?
Differentiator. Yeah.
bananas are like 18 cents a piece.
I know. And that was the reward I had selected with my gas station of choice. And then I realized, I think I'm actually losing money on this deal. I'm here for my free pound of bananas. And they're like, take them.
Yeah,
Like,
they're
literally,
already
just take
free,
'em.
pretty much.
In case you missed it, this week has to do with another major brand, McDonald's, and how McDonald's is testing a new chain amid global expansion. So McDonald's is going to test a new format that's trying to compete with Starbucks and Dunkin'. The company is opening 10 Cosmics. These are restaurants that are going to open next year, one in Chicago, and the rest are going to be in Texas. So for those listening, 9 in Texas. If the concept works, we could see Cosmics pop up everywhere and really fast. This news all comes as the company announced plans to open some 10,000 McDonald's restaurants globally over the next 4 years, bringing the total number to 50,000 restaurants. It's an extreme global expansion, but only 900 of these are going to be in the US. So if you've ever craved a churro frappe, a pear flavored slush, or a turmeric latte, thank you. Look for a Cosmics near you. Cosmics is also going to test drive-through lanes that manage traffic based on the complexity of your order. That was something I found very interesting. And people that are behind me in the drive-through definitely would appreciate is I'm just trying to order 90 things from a menu as I'm getting shouted at in 3 different, make sure you get the cinnamon twists. It's the first thing I said. McDonald's has also seen growth in delivery demand, which is why it needs restaurant locations closer to customers so food can arrive faster and hotter. McDonald's delivery, this was a stat that blew my mind. McDonald's delivery was a $1 billion part of the business in 2017. It is now $16 billion.
What?
Yeah. I mean, I could not believe that. I've not, every once in a while I stop at a McDonald's and I see the bags there for people that are even doing carry out. And I'm just it's so fast.
How are your fries hot when they get to your house? They're not, right?
That's why they need more locations closer to people. Hi, I ordered the cold fries. So McDonald's is already the largest producer or purchaser of beef and pork in the world. This new menu is very limited. So I see it having potentially an incredible impact on milk and dairy products. They're also on the menu. I joked about this earlier, but not to the podcast, so that's why I can be redundant. They're offering the McFlurry, which is something they just can't nail at their existing locations now. What do you always hear? Just sorry, the machine is down. So think about thousands of other locations where you could not buy a McFlurry. They also are going to focus on desserts and potatoes. So they're not going to have fries, which I thought was crazy, but they're going to have hash brown bites. Still, if they open these locations all over the US and the world, that's going to have a huge impact on the supply chain. Jeff, what do you think about, is this cosmics idea, does it have legs, or is it just going to, maybe be a passing fade?
I think if anybody can pull it off, it is McDonald's. I mean, they've got a lot of brand recognition. This is sort of what they call it's in the McDonald's universe, right? Is that kind of the terminology they're using?
It's a single arch to signify how it's a more streamlined experience.
There's a ton of competition here. I think it'll really test, like, are people brand loyal to McDonald's, or is it just super convenient?
I'm brand loyal, because if I'm on the road and I want fast food that I know is going to be consistent, I go to McDonald's.
I think that's what this is really going to sort of show. Yeah. Is it because I think there's a lot of competition within this particular sector. When you look at Starbucks, and around here we've got these Java places that are popping up. A different place you go through very quickly to get like the smoothie, the breakfast sandwich, coffee, that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But if there is that much brand loyalty to McDonald's, hey, I love a sausage and cheese McMuffin in the morning. I mean,
you can't get this here. You can't get that here.
I thought they could do the breakfast sandwiches.
They have, so you can get yourself a sausage tomatillo and cheese, or
okay,
yeah,
all right. I thought they had that.
This is already the problem, in my opinion, is that unless you make it very clear and distinct about what the difference is, people are just gonna be like, well, I don't know, I'll just go to McDonald's. Like, I mean, really,
Fair.
Like, is McDonald's still gonna have breakfast sandwiches and coffee?
Yeah, I mean, but if you need the, I'm going to use the churro frappe because turmeric. I just never gonna.
That's fine.
But if you would like a latte of this particular flavor that begins with a T, is that going to drive you there? And then you go to this destination, you're like, what do you mean you don't have fries?
Yeah, that's what I don't get. Is it just going to annoy people that they're like at the wrong place?
Yeah. Sorry, would you prefer hash brown bites?
Yeah.
Or maybe there are people who just want the elevated McDonald's experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever.
Yeah. You don't have me till you got any sort of Happy Meal. I need plastic junk with one of these, and then you'll see me.
That's the thing, is I could never go there because I would need to have like the fries for the kids and
for the kids.
And if I'm just on my own, I'm not going to Big Mix or whatever this.
No,
is.
that's what I think. It's cosmics. But no, I think that's when they're hoping to capture you, right? Is after the kids have been dropped off at school and you're on your way to work, and you would normally stop at like a Starbucks
That's
or
what
Dunkin'.
I'm saying. I'm not going to do that.
You're not.
No.
I mean, maybe.
Are you going to get a turmeric latte, David?
I'm not going to get a latte of that name. But I'm going to give these hash brown bites a try. And I'm not one for like the flavored coffee in the morning. It's just like the biggest differentiator in my coffee is that I put ice in it.
So see, I could see my wife going here.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it was easier to get to, if it was more convenient. I mean, like, look at the line around Starbucks and some of these other places.
Oh, yeah.
If you can get that different type of drink. Yeah,
with the speed of a McDonald's. Yeah. That's a really good point.
All right. Maybe it'll be less popular and vacated, and then she.
No, it's about how their automation. It's about how they can embrace their automation. And in terms of making McDonald's smarter, a lesser known announcement that came out was that Google mentioned a deal with Google around the same time yesterday that's hoping to connect thousands of their restaurants, including these cosmics, to the cloud. So McDonald's also plans to leverage a range of Google Cloud's hardware, data, and AI technologies. Basically, if you've ever used a McDonald's kiosk or app, the reason they run so slow and inefficiently is that they're using servers, like their own servers. And so this is a huge deal to improve speed and agility at these kiosks and the app by partnering with Google. Some of the things that are interesting here is that McDonald's is going to have its own dedicated Google Cloud team that works out of Chicago, working with McDonald's staff. What is it called? Like Speedy Labs? I can't remember exactly. But looking for ways to also apply generative AI to a number of key parts of the business. Now, that struck me because it's going to be so intelligent that like next time I go there, it's going to be like, so they're not just going to ask me if I want fries with that. They're going to be like, so like 2 fries with that, like 2 large fries with that order. And it's just, I don't use those kiosks because it is not a seamless user experience. It is slow and clunky. And I think that McDonald's is trying to modernize, and it could be a differentiator. Or, it's the next, what is it? What was the Pepsi? Pepsi's, no. What's the
Crystal Pepsi.
Crystal Pepsi? Yeah, I'm trying to think of like notable attempts to differentiate and like fall down.
Poor Crystal Pepsi. It's been so long, and still people talk about how terrible it was.
Still the gold standard.
Yep.
All right. Well, before we move on to our final thoughts for this week, we had a winner for the giveaway. We stretched it over a couple of weeks because we had the holiday. I was gone. Our winner is Mark. And Mark sent us a photo of his desk that had piles of papers and Post-its and other items, as well as, and I'm sure this was just for me, but he had an incredible rendering of a really smart looking pig with like an outdoor chic outfit. And I'm just like, this is our winner? Because, you know, there was all the clutter, and then there was just this really, like, something I couldn't understand on a screen, just looking into my soul.
Like a smartly dressed pig is what you're saying?
Yeah, no, it was like, you know, it had a smart vest with like a high collar and like some modern glasses, and I'm just like, I don't know what he's working on, but it's a winner. So...
Congratulations, Mark.
Yeah, so Mark...
Weird way to win something,
it
good
was
job.
a messy desk, too. It was a messy desk, but like, I mean, he really distracted me from the mess that he works in with what was on the screen. So Mark's going to win a Sellers tumbler, white rags box, and a shop towel box from our friends at Sellers. Founded in 1985 and headquartered in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Sellers is a leading manufacturer of shop towels, multi-use disposable wipers, towel and tissue and other absorbent products. They're such good friends. I'm butchering their read. Sellers products, which are also sold under Toolbox, Clean Task, and Mayfair brands, are made from recycled and renewable materials, and they are high performance and good for the environment. So I want to thank our friends at Sellers for helping us out with this giveaway. We're going to confirm whether or not we're going to continue it, put a pin in it, or there might be somebody else in line next week. Anna, final thoughts. What do you got for us this week?
Short and sweet today, but I just wrapped up just about my Christmas shopping, although my kids are like reworking their Christmas lists at last minute, as they always do.
Mm-hmm.
But just a reminder that, you know, as you're shopping this year, make sure to remember the community organizations that operate in your town and help things not fall through the cracks. Just make sure that you're keeping an eye out for their needs. I know a lot of organizations, nonprofits, they have drives right now. They have, things in place, outreach efforts that they're looking to fulfill, buying gifts for people who need them, things like that. So, just don't forget to check in and see what you can do to help.
And no matter what, any little bit helps. Even if it's donating blood.
Mm-hmm.
Get out there, give your fluids.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's not an even if. That's like a big, yeah.
Yeah. No, that was like, they sent me an email today that just said, here is a snapshot of what your donations have done this year. And then like right in the middle of it, they're like, and did you know 3 days after Christmas, you're eligible again. So would you like to book now? Just like, fine.
Guilted me into
fine.
it.
Yeah, it was just like all of these great stories about the impacts of blood donations. We need more.
You're ugly crying, and then they're like, would you like to donate again?
Yeah. I have so many babies. I'll come, of course. My final thoughts this week is actually a bit of a continuation from a previous final thought, because days after I had talked about how my new favorite thing was the mighty little crunchy corn from Sea Point Farms, and then Anna looked it up, and it seemed like it was completely out of stock. I mean, maybe it's coincidental. Maybe I was just on that mailing list, but I received a newsletter that for now in stock, Sea Point Farms Mighty Little Crunchy Corn, and I had a 15% discount on it. And so it might not even be available on Amazon anymore because I just bought everything that I thought would be not too ridiculous to have delivered to my house.
I thought that they discontinued that.
I thought they did too. Maybe this is a newsletter they sent to me and me only. And
here it is.
There it is. It's back. They just needed time, to bake more crunchy corn. My other final thought is the difficulties inherent with building gingerbread homes with your children. When you guys do gingerbread houses, I don't know if you ever did, Jeff, or Anna, I don't know if you guys do. How do you make a gingerbread house? Do you buy the kit, or do you just go graham crackers and frosting?
I stopped buying the kits because they like doing them, but then everyone gets really frustrated halfway through. And then when they're done, what do you do with them?
Yeah.
They just like sit there and be gross, and
you feed them to the birds.
Then you throw them away. And then, you can't eat them. They're horrible.
Yeah, we did the kits until the kids got sick of doing them.
Okay. So we purchased a gingerbread house kit for the magic of building a gingerbread home.
Magic?
With your kids. It's this Rockwellian moment that we're going to have.
Yeah.
But
that goes by fast.
It goes by so fast because the frosting that you're supposed to use as the adhesive doesn't work. It does not work. And there's not nearly enough to build 4 houses, one or too big, too small. But I had a little bit of a life hack that I was proud of here, where it was going so bad. The gingerbread houses were falling. The kids were crying. They were just eating the candy because everything was falling over. And so it was just like a free for all. And then Carrie pulls some stale marshmallows out of the cabinet. And she's like, might as well just throw these in the mix. And she's like, let's cut them up and stick them to them. And I'm like, hold on a second. I have an adhesive. And so I took all the marshmallows and melted them down. And man, I have made the most sturdy gingerbread homes that you will ever see in your life. And it's in this really cool, glassy gloss that's holding the seams together. And it was one of those moments where I was so proud. I saved this moment for our family, and the kids could not care less. I'm just look, we have built 4 homes. And they're just can I eat the candy? I'm like, put it on the house. But it was I don't know. It was just a good example of how, even when you have these situations with your kids and they don't go as expected, a little life hack can turn it around. It still can be a good learning experience. I don't think, I exactly made architects out of the children at that moment, but it's all about building.
David, I think it's more of a lesson in how to manage your expectations, because when you said gingerbread homes, the last thing that came to my mind was a Rockwellian experience.
Well, because I've never done it before. My last experience making a gingerbread house, we were using homemade frosting and graham crackers in grade school. So I had no expectation.
Yeah, you should have called us first, and we would have told you about all the crying.
Yeah, well, I was also,
and the frosting that gets everywhere.
Yeah. Well, that's so. Yeah, it remains everywhere. Yeah. I've swept twice, and they're still just I also don't know how they pick the random candies. Why is there a little baggie of candy arrowheads in there? That makes no sense.
I think they're just gingerbread kit did you buy?
I didn't buy it. I don't want to go into exactly how and why we procured the gingerbread house. I just want to say where I jumped into it, and then it made a difference in my life.
Thanks for sharing, David.
I know. I like to share. I went a week without sharing. I had a lot of sharing bottled up.
I just got 2 quick things here as well. First of all, thanks to the guys at 45 Drives and their What's Spinning podcast.
Ooh.
They had me on there the other day. It was a good time. The episode is up if you want to check it out. What's Spinning? It's kind of a podcast. They talk about data management. We talked about the industrial environment, some of the challenges going on there from a cybersecurity perspective. Wide-ranging conversation. It was a good time. So appreciate them having me on the show. And then also just wanted to follow up. In case you missed it a couple of weeks ago, was about trader carp.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And how the DNR tagged these carp to try to find the big nests.
Yeah.
Follow-up is it was successful.
Yeah.
It was?
6 trader carp led to the Minnesota DNR capturing and removing over 300 of these non-invasive carp from the waterway. So
they're so dumb.
The
they
6 Benedict Arnolds paid off quite well.
I was
50-fold.
I was so excited to see this story. When it crossed the wire. I talked to Andy, who does food manufacturing. I'm like, are you going to run this? And he's like, I don't know. Real loose. I'm like, you got to run this. It's it worked. And he's like, maybe if it's a slow news day. I'm like, I'm posting it. I'm so glad that you mentioned that because, it was, and it's the biggest
It was the best
harvest.
One. Yeah. Best one they ever had.
Yeah. It's, hopefully they don't learn the lesson of what else can we low jack? But, if it keeps working, I say keep doing it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at in.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. Subscribe to us on YouTube at IN Magazine and give us a thumbs up whenever you watch us live. For Jeff Ranke, Anna Wells, Eric Feel Better at Home, guest producer John, and Alex is always crushing it every week. I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast. See you next week.